From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
Pakistan and the United States have a strong, ongoing counter-terrorism cooperation. We have agreed to further strengthen this cooperation. I also brought up the issue of drones in our meeting, emphasizing the need for an end to such strikes.
One day after Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif meets with Obama, U.S. drone and targeted killing policy comes under scrutiny today at the United Nations. We'll speak with Ben Emerson, the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and Counterterrorism, who's scheduled to present a report that concludes at least 400 Pakistani civilians have been killed by U.S. drone strikes over the past decade. We'll also talk with former U.S. Air Force drone pilot Brandon Bryant, who says his squadron was credited with more than 1,600 kills.
We fired, and then 6 seconds before missile impact, something runs around the building. When I brought that up, the screener who disseminated the video feed said that it was a dog. But I don't think that he ever mentioned a dog the entire evening of them monitoring.
And the problem-plagued rollout of President Obama's signature health care policy comes under congressional scrutiny as the companies contracted to build healthcare.gov testify on Capitol Hill.
We were promised a website where people could easily compare plans and costs. $500 million later, we find the American public have been dumped with the ultimate cash for clunkers, except they had to pay the cash and still got the clunker.
All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Germany and France are demanding a no-spying agreement with the United States following new revelations of NSA espionage. Leaks from Edward Snowden this week show the NSA tapped into the cell phone of German Chancellor Angela Merkel and collected French phone records in bulk. News of the spying dominated the first day of a European Council summit in Brussels, with European leaders uniting in outrage. Appearing with Merkel, French President François Hollande said France and Germany will seek an agreement with the U.S. before the end of the year on ending the spying.
France and Germany will take an initiative. We will start discussing the matter with the Americans in order to agree upon a common framework. That will be done by the end of the year, and the other Europeans who would like to join us will be welcome. To be more specific, we will make sure that between the various services, we can not only clarify what happened in the past, but we can agree upon rules for the future.
In the latest of Edward Snowden's revelations, The Guardian newspaper reports the U.S. has monitored the phone calls of at least 35 world leaders. Staffers at the White House, State Department, and the Pentagon were all encouraged to share the contact information of foreign politicians. One government official handed over 200 phone numbers. In Washington, White House Press Secretary Jay Carney refused to comment on the report, repeating his vow that the U.S. is no longer spying on Germany's Angela Merkel.
We are not going to comment publicly on every specified alleged intelligence activity, and as a matter of policy, we have made clear that the United States gathers foreign intelligence of the type gathered by all nations. As I mentioned yesterday, the President spoke with Chancellor Merkel, reassured her that the United States is not and will not monitor the Chancellor's communications.
The identities of the 35 leaders targeted by the NSA have not been disclosed. According to a leaked government memo, the spying produced, quote, little reportable intelligence. As the diplomatic uproar over NSA spying continues overseas, activists in the United States are holding a protest Saturday in Washington, D.C. Stop Watching Us, Rally Against Mass Surveillance is organized by a coalition of over 100 groups, companies, and public figures. In a statement, Edward Snowden urged supporters to attend, saying, quote, "Today, no telephone in America makes a call without leaving a record with the NSA. Today, no Internet transaction enters or leaves America without passing through the NSA's hands. Our representatives in Congress tell us this is not surveillance. They're wrong. Join us in sending the message, stop watching us," said Edward Snowden. President Obama is renewing a push for immigration reform in the aftermath of the government shutdown that dominated Capitol Hill for weeks. Speaking in Washington, President Obama urged Congress to take action.
But what we can't do is just sweep the problem under the rug one more time. Leave it for somebody else to solve sometime in the future. You know, rather than create problems, let's prove to the American people that Washington can actually solve some problems. This reform comes as close to anything we've got to a law that will benefit everybody now and far into the future. So let's see if we can get this done. And let's see if we can get it done this year.
Contractors involved in the troubled rollout of the nation's new health care exchanges appeared before Congress Thursday to face questioning from lawmakers. The online portal for uninsured Americans in 36 states has been marred by crashes, glitches, and system failures since it went live earlier this month. Cheryl Campbell of the CGI Federal vowed improvements in the coming weeks.
The system will continue to improve. From our perspective, it's as painful as it sounds. I know that the experience has been a difficult experience. The system is working. People are enrolling, but people will be able to enroll at a faster pace. The experience will be improved as they go forward, and people will be able to enroll by the December 15th timeframe.
We'll have more on Thursday's hearing later in the broadcast. 2 members of the National Guard were wounded Thursday when a subordinate opened fire at a Navy facility in Tennessee. The gunman, a National Guard recruiter, was being relieved of his duties when he retrieved a weapon from his car. Millington Police Chief Rita Stanbeck announced the shooting.
At about 12:33, we responded to a 911 call at the Army National Guard unit over here in regards to shots fired. When officers arrived on the scene, we had two individuals that had been injured. We have one suspect who is in custody at this time.
A 13-year-old boy has been shot dead in California after police mistook the pellet gun he was carrying for an assault rifle. Andy Lopez was bringing the plastic replica weapon to a friend's house when he was spotted by police. Believing the pellet gun was real, Lopez was shot dead within 10 seconds. The 2 officers have been placed on leave. A coalition of over 125 groups led by the ACLU is seeking a Justice Department probe of the New York Police Department's spying on Muslim communities. The NYPD's Demographics Unit, as it was known until 2010, has secretly infiltrated Muslim student groups, sent informants into mosques, eavesdropped on conversations in restaurants, barbershops, and gyms, and built a vast database of information. The program was established with help from the CIA, which is barred from domestic spying. In a letter, the coalition says, quote, the NYPD's biased policing practices hurt not only Muslims, but all communities who rightfully expect that law enforcement will serve and protect America's diverse population equally without discrimination. 2 African-American customers have accused the high-end New York department store Barney's New York of racial profiling after they were detained for making expensive purchases. Trayon Christian, 19, was arrested moments after buying a $350 belt. Despite showing his ID and debit card to undercover officers, Christian was told the purchase was suspicious because he could not afford to make it. Christian has filed a lawsuit against Barney's. Another African-American shopper has since come forward to say she endured a similar experience earlier this year. The National Action Network has vowed to picket Barney's unless the alleged racial profiling stops. 2 people were arrested at the City College of New York Thursday in a protest against the closing of a hub for student activism. The Guillermo Morales Assata Shakur Student and Community Center was abruptly shut down last weekend after school officials said they needed the space to expand the campus career services office. Student activists say they believe the center was targeted in retaliation for the recent protests against the hiring of former CIA Director and General David Petraeus to teach a course. The chair of the Morales Shakur Center, Shepard McDaniel, said student activists are being silenced.
This is a lot bigger than just the administration here at City College. We know this is coming from the federal government, just in terms of their whole movement, particularly with the Petraeus demonstrations that are going on in this campus too, and organizing for those took place in that center. So it's been a target, and at this point, that is really trying to silence, student rights in terms of First Amendments, in terms of being able to organize against dissent, and so forth.
5 members of the Catholic Worker have been acquitted for blocking the gate of a New York base where U.S. drones are operated remotely earlier this year. The protesters held signs condemning the killings of children and other civilians as they stood in front of the entrance to Hancock Field Air National Guard base near Syracuse, New York. Calling the drone strikes illegal, the activists had argued in court their intent was to uphold the law, not break it. And the former head of the National Security Agency has been subjected to some unwanted eavesdropping of his own. Michael Hayden was riding a train from New York to Washington, D.C. on Thursday, giving an off-the-record phone interview as an anonymous former official. Hayden did not realize he was sitting close to former MoveOn.org director Tom Matzi, who proceeded to live tweet his account of Hayden's phone call. Matzi says Hayden's comments included harsh criticism of the Obama administration, as well as bragging about the CIA renditions program under President George W. Bush. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.